Today we remember the life of Henry Hyde, and Henry Hyde was no doubt one of the greatest members ever to serve in this chamber. He was certainly one of the most articulate. And let me note right off the beginning, Henry Hyde was a personal hero of mine long before I arrived here in this body in 1989. And unlike heroes who I have met over my lifetime, quite often I have been disappointed in the heroes that I've met. Henry Hyde remained a person I admired, a hero that I admired, even after I got to work with him and got to know him personally. Henry Hyde was, yes, a great orator, and he had a personal presence. Anyone who's ever worked or been around Henry Hyde could tell you that. Yet these were not the qualities that made his greatness. Henry used his talents and his influence to further fundamental principles and values that reflected Henry's character and his commitment to higher ideals. He rose above politics. And what is it that Henry believed in? What were these higher ideals? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life. Yes, that's the first. That's the first of Henry's values. Yes, Henry was one of the greatest voices in the defense of the unborn on this planet. It was not the popular stand to take, and it still is not necessarily the popular stand to take. It was a moral imperative, however, a moral imperative that Henry felt very deeply about. Once someone believes that the issue of abortion is not an issue that concerns tissue being extracted from a woman's body, but is instead an issue that deals with the ending of human life, the principle is clear. But the courage to advocate such a moral and principled position may not match the importance of the issue itself. Henry spoke with such eloquence on so many issues, but on this issue, one could not help but admire him and know that it was something that was coming from his heart, and a heart that was filled with love. He was a national force in the battle to protect the unborn. This is part of his legacy and something we should not forget and we should always remember him for, because it took courage for him to lead this battle. Henry made this issue a crusade, and he did much himself to create the movement that now I think has brought public opinion, and at least the public consciousness, more to what the issue is in this issue of abortion. Yes, life was Henry's number one priority. Liberty, Henry fought for liberty as a young naval officer in the Philippines during the Second World War. I was very honored to have gone with Henry to the Philippines, where he was issued a medal for his service as a young man in the Second World War. He then, after the war, returned home and fought the battle for liberty in both the state legislature in Illinois and, yes, here in the halls of Congress. Henry's war was a Henry for the war for liberty and justice for all. Henry was chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and yes, we should not forget another controversial thing about Henry. He led that Judiciary Committee at a time of an impeachment procedure against President Bill Clinton. With the sexual implications of the charges against the former president, that endeavor could have turned into a lurid political circus. Instead, Henry Hyde insisted on maintaining standards and maintaining that the issue was perjury, and that was the only issue to be approached and discussed, and he insisted on maintaining the decorum of this House under these most trying of circumstances. After serving as chairman of the Judiciary Committee, he moved on to serve as chairman of the International Relations Committee, and I was honored to serve with him on that august committee. And I watched firsthand as he stepped up and he maintained his commitment not only to American security, but to human liberty. These were the paramount issues for Henry Hyde, whether our country was safe and whether human liberty was being furthered. Yes, Henry Hyde was the chairman of the International Relations Committee and led us at 9/11, led us at a time when we went into war with radical Islam, a war in which we are currently engaged. And Henry, his courage, his strength, his character did very much to ensure the American people that, yes, we will prevail over this monstrous evil enemy that we face. Well, finally, let me note the pursuit of happiness. All of us who knew Henry know that he was a man who enjoyed his life. He exemplified that happiness comes from more than just acquiring material wealth. Henry was a happy man because he was doing what he thought was right and was making a difference. When he left us last year, he had dedicated his whole life to service of our country and to those higher ideals I've just mentioned. He had every reason to be proud of the wonderful and exemplary life that he had lived. So tonight we remember Henry. He will be buried later on this week, but he will remain a force in this body and will remain a force in American politics for years to come, along with the Henry Clays and the Daniel Websters and the other great orators and great men of principle who have served here in Washington, in the People's House, and in this great Congress.